I'm gonna kind of agree with the same thing that he just said. I mean, homeless is pretty much basically described as a place of not having somewhere permanent to stay, but just temporary. Kind of having to worry about how you're gonna eat, how you're gonna fend for yourself, where you're gonna sleep and stuff like that. Especially while you're attending college and stuff like that, and um, it is very kind of difficult for me to kind of be in a situation that I'm in because I am attending RCTC, and being living with other people can kind of be uncomfortable, but sometimes it's life and you kind of got to learn how to deal with it until you can find something better.
Teresa.
Well, I can agree with what is up on the screen, but also I can also say that it could vary place to place. Like if you're in a small town, I mean, I can't really see trading sex as a problem. I really can't see like if having a place to go after school. I mean, there comes a point in childhood, especially in foster care, to where you're homeless even if you have a place to go home to. I mean, once your foster parents just, in a sense, you're there just for them to make money, or if they're not there to care for your parents or foster parents, then you're homeless. I could also say I do have a place to live. I am living at the dorms at Crossroads College. However, knowing that once I step off that campus every summer or even during Christmas, I have no place to go. I can house hop, I can find places to sleep, but I'm still homeless. I mean, having a roof over your head isn't everything to be homeless. So.
Thank you. Does anybody else off the panel want to jump in real quick? We'll take one more. Go ahead, Mary.
I think
Or
one of
sorry.
the challenges is that our organizations, am I on?
I think it came on.
That our organizations have different definitions that we have to follow in order to meet criteria to access benefits. And that can be very challenging because one agency might be following the HUD definition, for example. In the public school system, we have to honor the McKinney-Vento. And foster care, for example, is a very difficult one because in some agencies, to be in foster care meets the criteria. In McKinney-Vento, it does not. And so it's very challenging to work together because the definitions are different. In the public school system with McKinney-Vento, it could be things like sharing the housing of others or being doubled up. So if a family is evicted, for example, for a family to move in with another family, it could be living in motels or trailer parks or campgrounds. It could be living in shelters. It could be abandoned in hospitals awaiting foster care placement. That's very tricky for us because sometimes there's kind of a situation where we've experienced this where the child is living with someone else while they're waiting to go to foster care, and it's not really, kind of a legal arrangement. It's just kind of the way it is. Another one is living in public or private places that are not designed for humans to live, living in cars, parks, or substandard housing. Sometimes migrant workers and children also fall into that category. Another one is the unaccompanied youth. So it's youth that have parents but are not in the physical custody of the parent or guardian. Maybe they've run away or been kicked out or thrown out or abandoned. And so those are some of the different pieces. And in Rochester right now we see a lot of double up and we see a lot of unaccompanied youth within the public school system. And I think people think of stereotypes, kind of like Teresa mentioned in the video, of cardboard boxes or benches, and that happens, but it's also more difficult to see because of some of these other parameters. So again, I think it's difficult because our agencies are governed by different rules, and that makes it difficult to iron out a true definition.
I think we had somebody out here that had a hand raised a minute ago. Okay, we have a mic for you here if you want.
First of all, I applaud you for the work that you're doing. My question is, what are the rights of a foster child before they get in the situation where they are homeless?
We don't have any. The day we turn 18, we're on our own.
And what if you foresee somebody that is in that situation and maybe put out there once they turn 18? What are their resources? I mean, other than if they don't know what their resources are, how do we empower those children?
I think that's one of the reasons we're here today. There are resources available. There are agencies. Many of us work for agencies that provide resources. The challenge is identifying the kids, getting that information to them. It's very hard for us to get a handle on the numbers of kids who don't have a place to call home, because so many of them, when we do formal studies, the Wilder Foundation studies, they had they could identify people who were living in shelters, places like that, but it's very hard to get a handle on the number of kids who are living with friends or couch hopping from one place to the other. So getting the information to them is difficult. Do we have enough resources? Nope, we don't. But we do have some. And maybe if we're all working together, we can make sure that at least the resources we do provide can be made more readily available to kids.
I think we have another one over here real quick.
Well, I would just clarify one thing, in that there was a legislative change last year requiring counties to provide foster care up to the age of 21. That's a very new change, so that because of the growing youth population coming out of foster care. So there is a change.
She's coming from over here.
Hi, I greatly appreciate that you shared with us your story. I also wanted to amplify that there are services for foster children if they choose to live in the home beyond the age of 18. What I'm curious to see is, what is Olmsted County's definition of homelessness?
I think that probably goes to me. We have to, the same as what Wendy said, if we're, is this working? If whatever program that we're working with, whether it's working with adults, if we have to meet HUD's definition of long-term homelessness, if we have to work with a chronic homelessness definition, it really depends on what program we're trying to access. I would agree with the statements that are here today, and the homeless response team would say, you know, anyone who doesn't have a place to go, if they're couch hopping, that youth would be homeless.
In your case, you stated it didn't work frequently with youth. So were cases of homelessness turned over to child protection, social services in terms of need for foster care, respite care? How do they define it for someone who's not yet 18?
That's a good question. I'm certainly not the youth homelessness expert for the county. So I think that's a question that we'll have to pose to Child and Family Services.
Go ahead, Tom.
I wanted to add that right now HUD's going through some changes. A couple years ago, Congress amended the McKinney-Vento Act, and over the next few months, we expect to see proposed regulations, and this may be an opportunity for everybody here to look at those proposed regulations and see if they agree with them, and to voice their concerns to HUD about what they feel is a proper definition of homelessness. I mean, we've already had one set come out, but as policies evolve, there's going to be a lot of discussion around this. Now, some of it is based on the law passed by Congress, but I foresee a kind of broadening of the definition of homelessness compared to what we've used the last couple years for the HUD-funded programs. And in order to, McKinney covers a number of agencies, the U.S. Department of Housing, and also the Department of Education and other departments, but yet each department sort of evolved into a slightly different definition. And so I think Congress has seen the need to standardize the definitions of homelessness. But at least for the HUD programs, it might be an opportunity for you all to speak up and say, I think it needs to be this or it needs to be that, and before somebody starts chiseling it into granite. So.